Welcome back, class. And this week we are going to be looking at biological anthropology. We will start with chapter 5, of course. And so let's get started. Okay, so how do anthropologists study humans and primate biological processes? Our foundations of biological anthropology is in the scientific method. We study primates either in the lab, in the wild, or a combination thereof, as well as in the captured settings like a zoo. We use both quantitative as well as qualitative information. Remember, quantitative is more numerical, and qualitative has to do with the five senses, what you smell, hear, see, taste, so on. So, as studying humans, we do it qualitatively, but more often than not for biological anthropology, it is done through quantitative methods. Of course, the methods are chosen based on the research question. So, understanding that how we communicate, our communication processes, communication competence, and social media and interpersonal communication, we can look at our living primate relatives to see how they do it and kind of put it on towards humanity. So, our closest relationship is with the great apes. Um, A good example of this is the Ebola virus is a reminder of the close relationship between great apes and humans. That's because they get sick with it just the same as we do. There doesn't have to be a change within the makeup of the virus itself. A lot of the time, any of the viruses that humans get, primates can easily get as well. And so we do study primates as a way of understanding general behaviors, as well as restricting a few kinds of primates in humans. And we look at this to see what is uniquely human. So how we differentiate. We look at similarities as well as differences. Because remember, at least within this classroom, we believe in evolution. And this, they are the closest in our evolutionary tree. Therefore, there's a huge connection as well as very similar DNA structures. So, being a primate and a human, there's a wide array of possibilities involved in being a primate, and no single primate provides a totally adequate model for human evolution or behavior. So that's why we study a variety of them. But these are the questions that can be asked. What can studying of other primates tell us about what it means to be human? What does it mean to be a primate? And why does it matter to anthropology? What are the basic patterns of primate behavioral diversity? And under what conditions do they develop? How do behavioral patterns among monkeys and apes compare with that of humans? What can studying monkeys and apes really illustrate about human distinctiveness? Primates derive from the Latin word for of first rank, implying that these creatures are a higher order than others. They share a common ancestry that split from other mammals some 65 million years ago. They live mostly in tropical and subtropical areas of the Americas, Africa, and Asia. key characteristics that are really good to look at when you're looking at monkeys and apes is the manual dexterity. Well, they don't technically have an opposable thumb. Um, they do have a lot of manual dexterity as far as all four of their paws and their, if it's a monkey, a prehensile tail. It makes living in a wide variety of environments easier, and they're able to make use of different resources. They also have very similar visual acuity. Their eyes face forward and are close to each other. Each eye captures its own information and it creates a stereoscopic vision. They also see in shades of at least green and red. So they do have some color in there, and that's to see the difference between the younger leaves and the older, tougher ones. So, also stereoscopic vision, give you a little bit more information about that. It's a three-dimensional vision, which not every being out there has. And it does have the depth perception, which helps with all sorts of things. And so being able to tell where something is helps you be able to get it. So, shared characteristics. They're also generally very intelligent. They have a larger brain size. They are locomotively flexible, and the collarbone, which provides great mobility. The fact that their hip bones are placed in the way that they tend to be longer than humans, so they can't be bipedal for nearly as long, but they can go between being bipedal and quadrupeds. So, they also have longer gestation times than most animals and a childhood for their offsprings. And they have to actually train their offsprings on how to live within their complex social groups. So, primate suborders. Strophotherian. There are two groups of these. There are lemurs and a group that includes the lories and the Galapagos. They have smaller bodies, a smaller brain to body ratio size, and a keener sense of smell than other primates. While they're mostly arboreal, living in the trees, and nocturnal. These are very important to study as they are one of the closest to the origins of our branch of the evolutionary tree splitting off. So, this cute little dude. This is called a tarsier or an eye. They're extremely cute. Um, and the tarsier forms are semiformous. They have a large body and brain to body size ratio and have more brain devoted to vision than olfaction or the sense of smell. They lack a wet nose. Your nose is wet, and even in humans, you'll notice the divot that's right under your nose when you get overly excited or anxious will start to sweat. That helps you be able to smell better. So, But they do show a greater diversity in lifeways, so their skeletons are more varied as well, which kind of helps with the diversity. Um, so, tarsiers and monkeys. Tarsiers are small-bodied nocturnal animals. They possess extreme leaping abilities and live within small groups. Acetopodi are mostly arboreal, and they have prehensile tails. The Ceratopsionidae are active during the daytime, and they are both arboreal and terrestrial. So, apes, except for gibbons, have large bodies and brains. The initial adaptation for swinging from limb to limb or brachiation eventually led to bipedal walking, which is unique among the human or Homo sapien lineage. So, African apes, gorillas, chimpanzees, Asian apes, such as the orangutans and the gibbons, as well as humans, are in this category. We have no tails. Adaptations in the upper body permit full rotations of the arms and greater hand movement, allowing them to hang and swing among the branches. Primates and anthropology. Primate studies within anthropology began in the 1950s. Early thinking held that human social behavior evolved from primates. Biological anthropologists create primatology as an interdisciplinary field. Ethnoprimatology, the study of the interface between humans and ape communities, came about, and just shortly after that. So, what are the basic patterns of primate behavioral diversity, and under what conditions did they develop? That's another one of our huge questions. And is creating a comparative baseline for the understanding of humans. Anthropologists look at three kinds of behavioral patterns in primate-wide trends, hominid-wide trends, and unique human characteristics. So, primates share a number of common behavioral patterns with humans across all primates, I guess I should say. The mother-infant bonding tends to happen. They have affiliations as well as grooming. Um, Dominance hierarchies tend to happen, and they are widely dispersed. They disperse quite often and quite regularly, um, and many different areas. So there is definitely periods of cooperation as well as periods of conflict, all connected to the requirements of living in groups and negotiating these social relationships. It depends on what primates we're talking about, but there's a huge variety of social relationships that happen. As you can see from this photo over here, you have different ways, multi-female and one male. We definitely see that within gorillas, multi-female, multi-male. We see that within chimpanzee. Um, Multi-male, one female. We see that more in the bonobo society. And then one female, one male orangutan. Behavioral ecology is the study of behavior from an ecological and evolutionary perspective. Ecological conditions change organisms and behavior evolves. Yet primate behavior also involves a complex interaction between their morphology, learning and experience, environmental circumstances, and change of occurrences. Sociological pressures. Sociological pressures act against individually on an organism. So behavioral differences emerge from the ways that these organisms respond to the different pressures that are put onto them. They come in four primary forms. So nutrition, locomotion, and predation and competition. So nutrition is the necessity of sufficient food and water. And so the lack of food and water has a different effect on different organisms, how they are able to deal with those pressures, if they're able to go find something else, or if they end up just staying there and dying. Locomotion, of course, is the necessity to move around in an environment. And so if someone cuts all of the branches off of the trees, hard for monkeys to swing. And that's one of their primary things since they are arboreal. Predation is the necessity to avoid predators. And so the limiting of a habitat ends up pushing the predators closer. That's one of the pressures that ends up coming on them, as well as competition within and between species. Cost, benefit, and strategies. So the basic economic models, cash in and out, measures energy expenditure and can help determine whether a certain behavior gives back to organisms what it expends. And so when an individual receives a benefit from another individual is related, then their shared genotype benefits. So what does this mean? The behavioral strategy favoring your closest genetic relatives is kin selection. The spectrum established the potential for traits or behaviors. So this is the limitations on the cost-benefit analysis. It cannot deal with greater complexity. It has difficulties to identify direct causal links between genes and behavior. Ecological conditions create a range of selection pressures for which certain behavioral responses might be appropriate. Some behaviors will be more successful than others and exist along a spectrum. What does this mean? How do behavioral patterns among monkeys and apes compare with humans? The macaques. So they are widely dispersed, they're generalists, and live within groups. Dominance relationship is very closely aligned with their sex. So males leave their birth groups. However, females end up staying with relatives. This particular arrangement is known as a matrifocal unit, a cluster of individuals generally made up of related females. Macaques have a unique ranking system in which female groups can dominate. Male macaques also have relationships involving dominance of one individual over another to help them resolve and negotiate disputes. Males move between groups, and because of this, their rank is very fragile, and they're constantly having to fight for their rank. Sexual behavior really varies among the macaques. Most females mate with more than one adult male, sometimes with all the males in the group, and there are many seasonal breeders. Chimpanzees, their But there are two species of chimpanzees. Both live within a mixed sexual community. Males are more often dominant over females. Common chimp males can attain high rank from alliance with other males. Competition can cause injury and even death. Common chimp female rank can result in improved access to food and sometimes higher rates of infant survivorship. When we look at the bonobos, they are completely different from the chimpanzees. Female bonobos are generally dominant over the males. Um, Females display dominance by dragging objects to get the attention of others. Dominance interaction rarely lead to serious fighting. Conflicts are resolved with non-reproductive sexual behavior. Male bonobo dominance hierarchies do exist, but male rank is linked to the rank of his mother. So there is little evidence that bonobo males can effectively restrict female mating choices, since females are usually dominant over males. So you have the chimpanzees, and they're much more violent, as well as the macaques, who are extremely violent, especially the males in both species, because they are constantly fighting for their rank. And then you have the bonobos, who are led by females, and they resolve issues through sexual acts. So, behavioral dynamics, conflicts, and tools. Conflict and fighting. Intergroup fighting tends to resemble human patterns of fighting within primates. Researchers have reported some incidents of inter-community conflict that ended with death. So, just like humans, tools have long been considered to be a hallmark of humanity. However, it was Jane Goodall who noticed that chimpanzees do exhibit a wide variety of tool modification and use. So, commonalities. Mixed groups of males and females. Their social interactions tend to be around kinship groups. They are widely dispersed based on remarkable adaptility. They're able to adapt very easily to different social and physical locations. They do have a dominance hierarchy, and this includes how we establish and maintain them. So, fighting, no matter if it's the verbal sparring between two alpha males or physical, it still happens. So, the differences, body morphologies, this tends to mean that males tend to be bigger than females. We also tend to have big, well, yeah, that's true among a lot of humans as well, but it's more pronounced within the ape community, or the macaques at least. So the brain size is most definitely different, as well as the locomotion, the scale and complexities of the social organization, and significant differences between male and female life patterns. Comparing the humans and chimpanzees. Commonalities are we all live within communities. Division is into different subgroups. There are types of relationships between individuals within the community. Male-to-male bonding ends up happening, as well as the social use of sex. Hunting is typically done as a communal activity as well. Sexual aggression happens in both humans as well as chimpanzee, and mate guarding also happens. So they are also aggressive between different. Um, Going on to look at it a little bit further, there's a significant question about social patterns yielding different possibilities. Some patterns are analogous, similar in appearance or function, but not the same. Some patterns are homogeneous, so similar due to shared ancestry, and some patterns are not even comparable because they are totally distinct behaviors. So, what does studying monkeys and apes really illustrate about human distinctiveness? Claims of morphological, genetic, and behavioral terms have been proliferated. Different disciplines answer this question differently. Anthropologists do use a holistic and comparative approach, which we definitely believe is important. Most of human evolutionary history, humans lived in small groups of mostly related individuals and cooperated. About 2 million years ago, early humans began to move out of Africa. And to meet these new challenges, those humans relied on tools and basic forms of social cooperation and alliances. This ushered in a radically different social behavior. Although certain elements resemble primates, no single primate exhibits all of the similar behavioral patterns. No primate species mediates these relationships and behaviors so thoroughly through their culture. Different social behaviors, the size of human social groups grow and become more sedentary. We don't see that within our primate relatives. There's a division of labor, which creates new social roles. Agriculture enables population to grow and environmental change. Cultural differences between groups increase. And so those are all the differences. Do non-human primates have culture? Some non-human primates exhibit patterns of behavioral variation across groups which are not reducible to genetic or ecological factors. Use of the term culture to describe these behavioral patterns is very controversial. Don't want to anthropomorphize or put human traits onto animals, but at the same time, yeah, okay. So, reducing culture to social transmission of behaviors and variations across group vastly oversimplifies the role of language and symbolic abstraction. And we'll learn more about language later in the semester. So you definitely want to go over and review the chapter sections. I will put up a video after this that is semi-optional, dealing with Jane Goodall. So definitely watch that. It is decently long, but I'm sure you will enjoy it and seeing all sorts of amazing chimpanzees. That is it for chapter 5. I will see you all in chapter 6.